Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm talking today about the polyvagal nervous system and the hierarchy within that system. So there's two aspects to the hierarchy. The first part is evolution. So in the beginning of our evolution as humans, from primates to humans, we were able to feign death, slow down the heartbeat, slow down the breath, and pretend like we were dead. That was our go-to strategy when we were afraid, when we detected threat or danger, a lack of safety in the environment. Be still, be quiet. And then we developed the ability to fight or flight, to fight or flee as well. So that came second. That is not as old as the immobilization response, the freeze response. Then we were able to add in a couple of other strategies. We could fight or we could run. So this involves an interface between the vagus nerve and the sympathetic part of the nervous system. The sympathetic part of the nervous system being able to mobilize. So first we developed this ability to immobilize, and then we developed the ability to mobilize, which I think is interesting. I would have thought it might be the other way around, but it makes sense that in the more primitive brain, just shut down. It's the easiest thing to do. And in the more evolved brain, there are more choices. So now we have three choices: fight, flight, mobilize, or our older strategy, shut down, collapse, immobilize. And then as we evolved further, we were able to activate the vagus nerve in a pro-social manner. And that means that we were able to immobilize that oldest part of the vagus nerve in a pro-social way. So instead of feigning death, it was, well, let's be still for conception. Let's be still for giving birth. Let's be immobilized when we're nursing. And think also when we sit down together to eat, right? So pro-social, being able to sit still, be together, look at each other, listen to each other, and interact with each other. And we're able to inhibit the defensive mechanisms of fight or flight. So that is really kind of bringing it all together there in that third stage of evolution. And then I would say the other aspect to that hierarchy is how we respond today, now that we have three strategies. So how do we respond now when we feel the environment is safe or when we detect a threat or danger? And that pro-social aspect, the ability to immobilize in order to connect and communicate with other human beings, is ventral, right? So that makes sense. It has to do with being able to breathe freely, having a nice steady heartbeat, feeling safe. So that's ventral, whereas the collapse is dorsal. And then the fight or flight tends to be a little lower down, I would say, kind of in that belly part of the vagus nerve, telling your instincts, right, that you need to run or you need to stay and fight. And you have to choose between those three things. But that's the other part that's already in play is the neuroception. So the neuroception aspect of the vagus nerve has already decided what you need to do. And those are the three choices. In terms of yoga, it's just such a beautiful way to tone and balance the vagus nerve. There's a drishti, that soft gaze at a still point. Again, think immobilization, gazing into somebody else's eyes, being able to see their facial expression, to hear their tone of voice, to really listen to what they're saying. And that happens when we are immobilizing because we feel safe, as opposed to immobilizing because we detect a threat. And so that brings us into co-regulation. So co-regulation is definitely happening through the ventral part of the vagus nervous system. Now, you obviously could be interacting with somebody from this more sort of dorsal collapse, or you could be interacting with somebody from a more agitated, animated place because you're getting ready to either fight with them or run away from them. So you're getting ready to mobilize. So that can still happen, obviously, in our interactions with other people and with the environment. But in co-regulation, where one nervous system is regulating itself and the other nervous system is regulating itself, then we can have this really beautiful interaction, intimate, pro-social interactions with our friends, with our family, and enjoy the gaze, the sound of the voice, smelling the food, tasting the food, really using our senses to be together, to have an experience together. And of course, studies have shown that if one person is regulated and the other person is dysregulated, the regulated person can have a positive influence, help that other person to calm down. Not by telling them to calm down. Don't ever tell someone to calm down. Don't you hate that when someone is like, can you just relax? It's like, no, if I could relax, I would relax. Obviously, I'm in a little bit of fight or flight. But if the other person is just being supportive and validating, not telling me to calm down, not telling me to relax, but saying, what can I do? How can I help? That's when I'm able to let my guard down and trust that this other person is there for me, and that will help me to regulate. So you can either be the dysregulated person and be open to somebody else who is calm and present and safe, or you can be that calm, present, and safe person for someone else who is dysregulated. And let's always have compassion for both ourselves and for others when we feel dysregulated. And how yoga helps us to balance the vagus nerve. As I started to say earlier, we use the gaze a lot in yoga, but we also do a lot of activity that has to do with the breath, that has to do with regulating the heart rate, that has to do with toning the core and really supporting all of the nervous system as well as the organs that are controlled by the nervous system in the torso. Yoga understands and Ayurveda understands how important the vagus nerve is. And just one last word about Ayurveda. Ayurveda is about really choosing what you put into your body so that you can support the gut biome. You can have a healthy enteric nervous system, which is another part of the nervous system that is in your belly, very much related to this vagus nerve as well, but the overall nervous system also. I think of the dorsal collapse, our oldest strategy, as depression. And I think of fight or flight. That's when the sympathetic nervous system gets activated, as anxiety, except that what it is depression, even though the environment is actually safe, and anxiety, even though the environment is actually safe, because it's appropriate to collapse when the environment is not safe, or to fight or flee when the environment is not safe. But it's usually because of some past trauma, right? Or it could just be stress in the moment as well. Of course, trauma is a stress disorder. So you can have plenty of stress issues without actually having had trauma in your life, but it feels the same. The nervous system is responding in a reactive way, not based on what's actually happening in the present moment, but based on a cognitive error or based on what has happened in the past. And it prevents people with depression, anxiety, and trauma from being able to engage in these pro-social activities in a way that feels safe for them. They may very well be engaging in these activities, but not in a way that feels safe. So yoga is offering that we can balance the nervous system, the whole entire nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, the vagus nerve, which is part of both the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, balance all of that out so that we really do know when we need to feign death or fight or run, or it's safe. And these people are safe. We know when people are safe. And maybe that seems like a leap. Well, how do you get from yoga to knowing when people are safe or when the environment is safe? Because yoga gives us those skills. Yoga allows you to really tune into yourself, to what's happening inside of you, and be aware of what is happening in the environment around you, to have an accurate perception of reality. That is what yoga gives us. And that's why yoga is so much more than just the posture practice. But the posture practice does indeed help us to know what is going on inside of ourselves and to pay attention to what is going on outside of ourselves and making that connection between what's happening for me and what's happening around me. So, all of the yoga practices, meditation, breathing, asana, and the ethics. I love the ethics, and I have lots of talks about the ethics if you want to check those out. And if you would like to know more about the vagus nerve, I talk a lot more about it and offer meditation and asana practices and breathing practices to support the vagus nerve in my course, The Awakened Heart, a Year of Self-Care. And I also talk a lot more about the enteric nervous system in yoga and Ayurveda, natural rhythms, and healing routines. So both of these things, the enteric nervous system and the vagus nerve, are really put out of balance by trauma, depression, and anxiety. And all of my courses are designed to heal trauma, depression, and anxiety through the traditional practices of yoga. Om, Om, Om. Namaste.